Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me today. A quick introduction of myself. My name is Samantha Knighton DeForge, and I do hold a double major in information systems and business, with my primary focus being working with small and medium-sized enterprises and really helping them leverage technology tools so they can achieve their operational goals. My subject matter expertise primarily lies within manufacturing, distribution, and e-commerce, with some exposure to service and project-based companies as well. And I have deployed hundreds of software implementations and enhancements for clients throughout my career. So let's just get started with an overview of our journey today. Today, we'll go through some of the challenges that exist in supply chain that are directly correlated with the fundamentals of technology and what primarily causes them. Then we'll move directly into what opportunities can look like, and then concluding what the next steps are for a business who might happen to have some of these challenges. And I will, of course, use some examples, reference some customer cases, and of course, I'm big on analogies, so I'll start with an analogy. The leaky roof and what it would take to resolve the leak. Now, I'll share what the unfortunate reality looks like in a normal business. A company has a leaky roof and they need a fix for it to prevent the water from getting in. So they say, you know what, let's just buy some duct tape and patch it because it's more cost effective. 6 months goes by and the hole's gotten bigger. The drywall is starting to now rot, and the business says, honestly, we don't have that much time to contact and facilitate roof and drywall repair. So you know what, let's just add more duct tape because it's more cost effective anyways. A year later, the roof collapses and now there's a huge hole in the ceiling, and the thought is, honestly, it's not that bad, so let's just add more duct tape because it's more cost effective anyways. And some will say, well, why wouldn't we just fix the leak, replace the faulty shingles, and then patch up the drywall? With the response being, nah, duct tape works fine and it's cheaper. This is a little odd to think, but this is unfortunately the reality as far as business goes in so many cases. So what's the main challenge in supply chain? Having one main source of the truth, because the thought isn't initially to look at the big picture. Supply chain is a series of links which should be joined together that are more importantly part of the entire business chain. But supply chain is also not the be all and end all of a business. A couple common truths that are listed here, you know, the truth of inventory, the truth of procurement, replenishment, production costing, etc., whatever it might be, it's having that in one centralized location. So let's break it down with an example. Now, this is a manufacturing business which sells online and through wholesalers, fairly common. They run an accounting solution. They also run an inventory system. They have a system to track manufacturing, another for ordering, and then finally, their commerce site. So this is a fairly common example, and whether it's an actual official system or spreadsheets, I still like to think that spreadsheets are considered a system, although incredibly limited, but they are essentially capturing data. So here we see orders are placed a few ways, which create demand in the inventory module to procure inventory, then to eventually manufacture, to eventually ship, invoice, and then of course maintain customer relationship management long term. The problem here is everything is an individual link that is likely being managed in spreadsheets in between by appropriate people who have been brought in to do so. Shipping has no insight into what sales or manufacturing is doing, so they don't really see what's coming into the warehouse. Manufacturing doesn't have insight into upcoming sales, so they can't really let inventory know that they need to procure inventory in order to manufacture and meet demand. And shipping and invoicing, they don't communicate easily either. So now you're faced with a problem where you might double ship or actually forget to invoice because the papers or emails got lost along the way. So the problem is the business needs this communication, and it needs one thing, an integration. So consider the arrows here, the integration points. And the integration doesn't actually have to be an application or a program. And in most cases, it most certainly isn't. It's usually a person who is manually entering that data from one system into another. So why does this happen? It's simple. It's rare that you find a business that looks at the big picture. They look for duct tape. They look at addressing the leak. Inventory problems, we need an inventory system. Accounting problems, we need an accounting system. Manufacturing and MRP requirements, we're going to buy a manufacturing system, and so on and so forth. So why should a business look at the big picture, for instance, if their problem lies solely in inventory? So let's take a closer look at basic inventory involvement in a manufacturing scenario. Inventory touches on all of these listed tiles and more, depending on your business specifics. So everything from bringing in raw materials, manufacturing the finished good, loading them back into the inventory system to then reconcile accounting, to then also list the available quantities eventually on the commerce site. This is why you have to look at the big picture. The limitations of not looking at the big picture are as follows. It is incredibly expensive to manage integrations. Whether they're actually people or actual code, you have an incredibly high total cost of ownership on this, and smaller, if any, return on investment at all, because the more duct tape you put on, the bigger the hole gets, and then more water's leaking in until you add more duct tape. There's no operational flow, and nobody actually has insight or visibility into anything that's going on. So let's talk quickly about these integration costs, starting with people at the bottom here. Paying someone an actual salary to enter data from one system to another. Then we actually have IT costs. So we've decided to program and develop an integration. So now you're faced to pay for servers, development, and then the maintenance of these integrations. And it's the maintenance that will cost you a lot because these connectors break. It's because of Windows, SQL, security updates. I don't really want to get too technical, but this is not a matter of if they will break, it is simply a matter of when. These updates hit, they hit hard, they don't mean to, but the next thing you know, your commerce site's down, the manufacturing doesn't have the latest production orders, or inventories just stop syncing because now you don't have this connector, resulting in the biggest cost, missed opportunity costs. Customers now going elsewhere because you couldn't fulfill the orders in time, or you didn't have a commerce site, or there's integrations, or they can place orders after hours. So what does advanced technology that is consolidated looks like? Now, let's start from the bottom. Happy customers. So you have an integrated solution and you're successfully fulfilling. You're now empowering your customers to be self-sufficient, leveraging tools like e-commerce or customer portals. That way, your customers can place orders directly after hours. Now, if you're not selling online, we've heard it a couple of times here today, even in this session, you need to. COVID has dramatically changed this, and the statistics behind selling online are mind-blowing. But keep in mind that you do not have to sell jeans, candles, or any sort of consumer-based trinket to sell online. We have clients who are industrial manufacturers, for instance, that have a similar customer base where they have provided their customers login information to their customer portal where they can see things like order history, outstanding balances, inventory stock levels, even by warehouse, and then they can directly place orders from that portal as well, empowering their customers to be self-sufficient. Now, second, the meat and potatoes, supply chain. With advanced technology in place, you now have accurate data, which is centralized in one location, which results in the ability to leverage things as far as automation goes, replenishment, or even scheduling tasks go. So now you're able to actually model predictive analytics based on forecasts or even history in your business because everything is centralized in one location. So at the top, we have the mothership, the enterprise resource planning solution, where everyone that needs to has a 360-degree view of their day. If you are the CEO and you can see incoming, or outstanding AR, top selling items, what your manufacturing or projects are looking like, being proactive, seeing if they redline, that 360-degree view of your business. Because your operations are now streamlined, you have efficiencies, and your system is doing the tedious work for you and now giving you recommendations that you need. Now, it no longer takes you 8 hours to generate an accounts receivable report or a project report. And yes, someone has told me in the past that it took them 8 hours to generate an accounts receivable report. But let's talk about view. Speaking of the view, here we just see a generic customer dashboard that is available in most modern day ERP solutions. This is company-wide, but if I typed in a customer code here, I'd see that customer specific data. All of these tiles that you can see here are actually drillable, so when you click on them, the information will pop up directly to you. Things that are appearing in red are obviously no bueno, and things that are appearing in green are obviously still doing fairly well. But let's talk about something a little bit more relevant for the really frontline workers. Here's an example of a shipping clerk dashboard. So warehousing comes in the morning, and here they can see a list of their orders that need to be shipped. At which point they can click on the order, go pick, pack, and then eventually confirm the shipment and send it out the door. And this is all updated in real time. So once this is done, it disappears off the list. So once it's confirmed, we now see that the AR clerk has an invoice that's ready to, an invoice being ready to invoice. So they click on that tile. That way you're not double shipping, you're not missing invoicing, and everything is that nice workflow and is centralized in that one location. The data should come to each and every person. So fix the leak, then the roof, and then eventually the drywall. Now, A common misconception is that ERP solutions are simply an audit trail, and they are not. And I've listed some, and I emphasize the word some, of the things that modern day ERP solutions are capable of as standard functionality. The few that surprise a lot are CRM, engineering change control, warehouse scanning solutions, asset management, projects, timesheets. Projects tends to be a really big surprise for a lot of people, and having employees have the ability to actually enter timesheets against a specific project. So let's say that you might think that you might have some concerns. So what do you do now? Now, here's some of the signs you should consider some sort of an ERP business solution to streamline your business into something centralized and focus on the big picture. Spreadsheets being the big one. If you run even one spreadsheet, but that spreadsheet happens to be inventory, or for instance, bills of materials, it is time to evaluate. In addition to this, if you're running multiple systems, you're hiring additional data entry staff, you're growing, you're not in the cloud, please get on the cloud. Ransomware is very much alive these days, and it's quite frightening. Or if it takes a very long time to generate any sort of report, or you don't have that visibility. These are some of the signs, but there are a few things that you will need to do first. Document your pains, your processes, and then your procedures that you currently have, and then quantify the cost of ownership on this. Calculate the data entry staff, the integration costs, the Excel sheets, the mistakes. We had a customer that, well, wasn't a customer, eventually became a customer because they had a $75,000 mistake because they forgot to invoice. Always look at the big picture. Once you're ready, then reach out to some software companies. Be honest, be transparent, but more importantly, partner with them. They are there to help you. So the more information you share with them, the better solution you will see and be long-term, and there won't be any surprises long-term. And I cannot stress transparency enough. But things to avoid and take note of, avoid bias. I've worked with this in the past, or I know someone who uses this, or this system was great, I can do training. Always go in with an open mind when evaluating business solutions. One solution that you worked with 10 or 5 years ago is probably not very relevant in 2020 or today's market. Also, avoid starting with product demonstrations without requirements documented, because you will be shown wow features of every system that you look at. And if you're not transparent, you might actually be shown a Vespa or a bike, where in reality, you need a cargo ship. Well, at that point, you'll just make a self-made assumption, oh, well, system can't handle this because they didn't see it. Be transparent, communication. One of the biggest things that I always emphasize is avoid accounting driving this decision. Accounting will always be achieved in any ERP solution you buy. It is standard, there's GAAP requirements, there's strict accounting policies. It's a very standardized process in the backbone. Now, keep in mind one thing, operations drives accounting. There is no accounting without operations. So avoid having accounting streamlining this decision, work together and make sure that you're working as a unit instead of having just looking for an audit trail, because that's not what you should be looking for. Just a quick red flag, if you are in the buying process, substantial price discounts. These are predatory vendors just looking to close a sale, especially if it's quarter end. Don't get me wrong, most software companies do tend to have promotions in place, just like Ford dealerships do. They just had employee pricing and they bought a vehicle. But if you happen to get an 85% discount right off the hop, remember two things. One, you're not that special. Sorry. And you will have to pay that subscription in full after that year lock is over. So always look at the long-term investment of this. Stay optimistic on price because you've already quantified the cost of ownership of your systems. So you have a realistic number of what your spreadsheets, multiple system and IT costs are actually costing you. Just a quick recap. Evaluate your existing challenges and then understand the costs associated with them and why Excel is not free, especially when we're factoring in the integration costs. Identify your solution options while always thinking big picture and having operations heavily involved in the process, not just accounting. And finally, consider your next steps after you've documented your business processes and procedures and pains, because you've done your due diligence, and after you've quantified the cost of ownership. And never, ever start with biased opinions or tech demos without these requirements. But thank you all for your time today. Don't ever hesitate to reach out with any questions directly, and I hope I made it on time.
You did. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Richard, Jason, and Samantha. If there's any questions, we do have a couple moments here. If anybody wanted to use the chat and we can get the question answered, or we're moving into a 15-minute networking break. By all means, reach out through private messages and you can have a private conversation with any of the three speakers here.